folks, and welcome back. In this video I'm going to be making some modifications to my German Army Haversack. Okay, let's get started. Right, the first thing I want to do is I want to remove some of the things that are already on this bag that I'm not going to need. So these straps are coming off, these loops are coming off, these straps are coming off. The ones on the bottom here, I'm not going to need those, they're coming off. So I'll start with that. Some of these straps are riveted on to strengthen them, so I'm going to have to drill those out. I'm also going to cut these buttons off. They were quite difficult to get off actually, they were glued on as well as sewn. So I had to kind of like cut through the glue. And amazing, considering how old this pack is, that glue is still held. But there you go. Things were built to last in those days. Right, so some of the things I'm going to do. The straps are one of the things that really annoyed me about this pack, as I said in my last video. So they were the first things to go. I'm going to replace those with modern plastic snap buckles, which will be adjustable. So there'll be the two buckles on the main flap. They'll be replaced, and also the tie sort of cord on the inside here. I'm going to replace that with a snap buckle as well. Some of the other closures. There's this flap on the front where I showed you my knife and my saw normally go, which had 3 buttons on. That was quite fiddly to fasten and unfasten. So that's going to get Velcro. Be a long strip of Velcro going across the front there. It'll be a very good, strong fastening, easy to open, easy to close. There's this sleeve pouch in the back of the pack where I normally keep my sit pad and my stove. That hasn't got any sort of fastening at the moment, so I'm going to create a little flap on there which will also have a Velcro closure just to keep all that in place. Now there's a sleeve in the front closure of this pouch in the lid. That hasn't got any fastening on it at all at the moment, so I'm going to also put some Velcro up here so that whatever goes in that little sleeve will stay put. And on the back of the pack I'm going to add an axe sleeve so I can tuck my axe in there. I don't often take my axe out when I have this bag, but there will be occasions where I might, so having a dedicated place for that to go would be great, because obviously it's too small for the axe to fit in the pack. It's got to kind of go on the outside really. Going back to the inside, I'm also going to add 2 straps at the top of the pack here. I've removed the clips on the front panel where you could have theoretically strapped on a bedroll or a blanket or something like that. So I'm going to have some straps on the inside so that a bedroll could go on the inside and the closure could go over the top. So that would just hold, hold that blanket or whatever in place. And the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to completely cover this front panel in waxed canvas. This canvas is a good thick hard-wearing canvas, but it's not very waterproof. You know, this thing was made in 1962. It's had a lot of years use. I could possibly reproof it, but I've got waxed canvas, so I'm going to use it. I'm going to just make a panel and literally sew it over the front there to waterproof it. So this is the last bit of Velcro to go in now, and this is on the flap, on the main closure of the haversack. And because I'm going to Velcro all the way down the side, it's going to be quite difficult for me to open it. So what I'm going to do to help is I'm going to sew some tabs in just behind the Velcro like this, one on each side, so I've got something that I can grip to open up the Velcro. Right, next on the agenda, straps. So I've got a bit of an obsession with straps, not in any sort of dodgy way, but I like to collect old straps off rucksacks and packs and things, and my local army surplus store often sells off old bits of webbing and stuff really cheap, and I just grab hold of them when they do. because they're always useful for various projects and modifying bits and pieces. So what I'm going to do is have a sort through here, and I'm going to find some straps that I can use on the haversack. I need quite a few because, like I said, I need straps for the front to replace the ones I've cut off. I need straps on the inside to hold a bedroll in place and to fasten those two wings. I need a few, so I'm going to have a little sort through. Then I'm going to see what I've got in the way of buckles and snap closures. These buckles, these short bits of webbing, and those longer ones are going to become the main straps. These two pieces here in this smaller buckle will become the closure inside here to replace the one I've got to tie. These two longer straps here and these ladder locks will become straps to hold a bedroll in place, and this one here, which I found, which has actually got that one already attached, I'll use that as a strap to hold my axe in place. So what I've done here is I've turned the pack inside out because I'm going to unpick some of the stitching here and here so that I can sew these buckles in. The old ones were just sewn directly onto the bottom, but access is really difficult because it's quite a rigid bag. I can't really flatten it out enough and work on the bottom of the bag to be able to sew it on my machine. So I'm gonna use the seam and stitch it through the seam, if you see what I mean. So the first thing I need to do is to unpick the old stitching that's here. Okay, so I've unpicked a little hole in the seam here, and I've poked through my bit of webbing tape with the female part of the buckle. Okay, so I've gone through and poked that through the hole. So it's poking through there, both sides, you see. And what I'm going to do now is just to stitch along there, and that will trap it in place. And then I can put that bit of tape back over it and stitch it all through and make it all nice and neat again. Okay, as you can probably hear, the machine's struggling a bit with that. I'm trying to go through two thick layers of canvas and basically two bits of the webbing, you know, because it's folded over. So I'm going to give it a bit of a run up and hope for the best. Okay, I gave that another go and I managed to sew it through, but I did have to really gun it through. It was a bit brutal. I wouldn't necessarily recommend anybody tries it with their own machine, but there you go. There you have it, sewn through the stitching, through the seam, all nice and neat. Okay, so I've unpicked the stitching along here as well, so that I can remove the old tie. And I'm going to replace that with webbing, so that bit will be stitched in there. Okay, next thing is to make some straps. Now I've got those made, I'm going to sew them into the lid of the pack. There's going to be one on each side here. I'm just going to sew them to this section here. They'll be permanently fixed, and when not in use I can just thread one end through the other and just keep it out of the way, but then it's always there, or they are always there rather, when I need them. Okay, I've had a last minute change of plan. I was going to put my axe sleeve on the back of the pack, but it was going to create a huge amount of problems sewing it on. Because I've got that pocket on the back of the pack inside, I couldn't separate everything to be able to sew it properly. So I've changed it slightly. I'm now going to put the sleeve on the side, okay, so that axe will hang down vertically on the side of the pack, and I think that'll be fine. So I'm going to sew that onto the side and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, nearly there. Just got the straps to put on the front. I'm going to, the bit of webbing that I cut for it, I'm just going to fold over and stitch along here, just so that it can't pull back through the buckle. All right, I don't want to run the risk of losing this half of the buckle. So just by folding that over and stitching it, it just means that the webbing can't pull back through accidentally. So just while I'm finishing off here, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all the people who spent some time digging around and researching what this pack is. As I'd said in my previous video, I've had this for ages and had no idea as to its origin. And people saw the serial number on there and did a bit of research and found out exactly what it is. And somebody even found some photographs, some modern photographs of this pack, showing the yoke and the webbing system for carrying it. And as it turns out, it's a West German field pack that was used in the 1950s and 1960s. This one's dated 1962. Yeah, there you go. Now I know what it is. So thank you. Okay, so here we have it. We have new straps. Much easier to fasten and unfasten, and they're adjustable. We have a new strap on the inside here to keep these wings together. We have a new closure on the front instead of the buttons. We have a flap and velcro on the back to cover up this pocket where I keep my foam sit pad. We have an axe loop on the side. We have two straps to hold something along the top of the pack here. We have a velcro fastening for the pocket on the flap. We've got a waxed canvas panel on the front to keep the weather out, and I made a leather patch with my logo on just to finish it off on the front. Well, I'm absolutely thrilled with how that came out. It wasn't easy, you know, stitching through thick layers of canvas and through the webbing. You know, it was a bit much to ask of my poor old sewing machine, actually. But you know, I got there in the end, and I'm really pleased with how it came out. One of the trickiest bits when you're sewing up or modifying a bag is getting to the inside. If you've got to stitch Velcro and things inside the bag or pouches or whatever, it's really hard to get inside. I had the same problems when I did my LK35 modifications. When I put the pouches on, it was had a hell of a time getting in there. This in a way was even worse because it's a tighter space. So you've really got to kind of fold and manipulate the bag and try and squeeze it underneath the you know, the throat of the sewing machine here. There's only so much space here that you can get material under. So it was a bit of a fiddle, but you know, like I say, I got there. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope you might have found it useful. Army surplus gear. It's cheap as chips. You can get it from surplus stores. You can get it online. Doesn't cost very much. It's ideal for outdoor use, for bushcrafting. You know, the stuff is bomb-proof. It's built to last, and you know, it's ideal for modding. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you soon.